Imagine an illness with symptoms such as cough, chills, fever, and fatigue. Hospitals are overrun in some places, and there aren't enough medical professionals to go around. People are told to stay at home because this illness will kill you. You probably thought I was talking about COVID-19, but you'd be wrong. I'm actually talking about the H1N1 virus that caused the flu pandemic of 1918. While many people feel like this pandemic is something completely new, the fact of the matter is, about 100 years ago, Americans were dealing with the exact same thing. Hey everyone, my name's Rachael Sullivan, and today on 5 Minute Flashback, I'm going to talk about the flu pandemic that infected a third of the world's population. It started in the soldier camps. In March of 1918, there were outbreaks of a flu-like illness. At Camp Funston in Fort Riley, Kansas, more than 100 soldiers became ill with the flu. Within a week, that number was 400. However, it wasn't until September that the illness fully struck. At Camp Devens, a training camp outside of Boston, more than 14,000 cases were reported, and 757 deaths had occurred, all due to the flu. Finally, in October, the illness struck cities, and it struck them hard. Hospitals overflowed with patients and the dead. There were so few medical professionals that nursing students worked as nurses, medical students worked as doctors, and 6-month-long vocational nursing programs popped up all over the place. People would go from unwell with minor irritating symptoms to struggling to breathe with blue fingers and toes in 12 hours. It wasn't much longer after that they died. So what killed these people? Some died of pulmonary edema, and some nasal hemorrhaging, essentially drowning them in their own body fluids. Most, however, died from the secondary bacterial pneumonia that would occur after the virus had run its course. Due to there being no antibiotics at the time, these patients soon died. Overall, the virus was deadly, striking down the young quickly and leaving patients gasping for breath in their last moments. Different cities handled the deadly disease differently. Cities like New York acted quickly and harshly. They enforced mandatory quarantines and staggered business hours. They experienced the lowest death rate on the eastern seaboard. Other cities like Philadelphia didn't enforce closures until the death rate was beginning to climb. That resulted in their city being hit the hardest in America. In the end, the cities that enforced social distancing very early and maintained it for longer periods of time did the best. Cities that lifted their interventions too quickly saw a large spike in cases and death. All this death and disease occurred in October of 1918, also known as the second wave. This was the deadliest wave of the illness that resulted in the most deaths from the disease. In January of 1919, there was a third and final wave that subsided in the summer. In the end, an estimated 500 million people, or a third of the world's population, became ill with the disease, and somewhere between 20 to 50 million people died due to the flu. This included about 675,000 Americans. This flu had a mortality rate of 2.5% compared to the normal 0.1% mortality rate in other flu pandemics. There were many unique things about this pandemic, and the reason behind these oddities are still not fully understood. The first is just, why was this virus so deadly? While it's clear that people didn't have an immunity to this particular virus, the fact that this flu pandemic had a higher mortality rate is very interesting. Another weird facet of this pandemic was the fact that it occurred in 3 waves within the same year. The final oddity of this pandemic was the age group that was hit the hardest. Usually, children and the elderly are most susceptible to diseases, but this time, it was those ages 25 to 34. People ages 5 to 14 had a high infection rate, but low mortality rate, and those 65 and older made up less than 1% of all infections. Well, it seems that's all the time we have for this 5-minute flashback. What did you find the most interesting about the 1918 pandemic? Did you see any similarities to what we're going through with COVID-19? If you're looking to learn more history, the best way is by subscribing to ZTV 5-Minute Flashback on YouTube, liking us on Facebook, following us on Twitter, and showing us some love on Instagram. This was Rachael Sullivan from 5-Minute Flashback, reminding you to go out, enjoy life, and stay curious.
This program was produced by ZTV at the University of Akron. Do you want to gain experience in video production, professional social media, or working with real clients? Visit the UA School of Communications online or follow us on social media to learn more. ZTV, make media, make a difference.